The final jump. December 2016, Sao Paulo, Brazil. A sunny day in Brazil. A 36-year-old man named Fabio Ezequiel de Moraes decided to chase a real thrill, bungee jumping. He, along with his wife, 6-year-old son, and brother, went to an old railway bridge about 40 meters high. Fabio wanted to film this jump to create an unforgettable memory, unaware that it would become his final memory. That day, a professional team was responsible for organizing the jumps. Fabio, brimming with confidence, donned the equipment, stepped to the edge of the bridge, and, as his family cheered excitedly, threw himself off. But a fatal miscalculation had occurred. The rope meant to save his life was too long. In a split second, instead of the rope snapping taut to hold Fabio in midair, he slammed headfirst into the ground right before the horrified eyes of his wife and child. It was a ghastly scene. His family, who moments before had been joyfully filming, now ran toward him screaming. The rescue team sprang into action, but the impact to his head was so severe that Fabio died instantly. This tragic incident raised countless questions about the safety of extreme sports. How could a professional team make such a deadly mistake? Is there enough oversight for these activities? The video of the accident spread rapidly online, breaking the hearts of millions. It was a stark warning to all adrenaline junkies. Even in seemingly controlled recreational activities, a small mistake can cost a life. Fabio set out to create an exhilarating memory, but left behind an eternal nightmare for his family.
Madness on the motorway.
May 17, 2008, Misix Motorway, United Kingdom. It was one of those days when the asphalt warmed under the spring sun, yet an eerie chill hung in the air. It all began with a strange phone call to the police. A bus driver was concerned about two of his passengers, Swedish identical twins, Ursula and Sabina Eriksson. They had abruptly gotten off the bus mid-journey, for no apparent reason, and were now walking along the edge of the country's busiest motorway, dressed in dark clothing. No one, not even the police rushing to the scene, could have guessed this was just the start of a frenzied and bloody chain of events. The twins, as if from another world, paced the motorway's shoulder, muttering incomprehensible things under their breath. The calm on their faces was more terrifying than the danger itself. The initial spark of tension was their illogical presence amidst all that speed and peril. Police and a documentary film crew covering traffic patrols arrived to help, but the twins were restless, as if an invisible force was pushing them toward disaster. The crisis escalated step by step. When the police tried to speak with Sabina, she said with a chilling calm, "I know you're not real." Then the turning point struck, the moment when hidden madness turned into a deadly act. Without warning, Ursula broke free from the police and ran straight into the motorway. It wasn't a decision. It was a surrender to darkness. The screech of an 18-wheeler's brakes tore through the air. Ursula's body was flung into the air like a doll, landing on the asphalt with a sickening thud. But this wasn't the end. Mere seconds later, as the police stood frozen, Sabina, with an eerie smile, repeated the act, throwing herself in front of a Volkswagen Polo.
On arrival, both females have ran out into the carriageway.
The sound of shattering windshield glass mingled with the impact of her body on metal, completing a symphony of horror. She lay unconscious for 15 minutes. Both had survived, as if death itself rejected them. Ursula screamed and resisted under the paramedics' hands, and Sabina, upon regaining consciousness, punched a police officer.
No! No!
The scene was like a deranged circus, filled with sirens, shouts, and disbelief. The aftermath was unbelievable. Two women severely injured yet miraculously alive. Ursula was taken to the hospital. Sabina, inexplicably, was released after a few hours in custody, but this shared madness demanded another victim. The next day, Sabina met a man named Glenn Hollinshead, a kind-hearted 54-year-old citizen who offered her shelter out of compassion. In his home, Sabina stabbed this innocent man to death with 4 strikes and fled. The final toll of this chain of madness: one man, 2 women severely injured, and a family forever bereaved. Reactions were a mix of shock and confusion. How could the justice system allow a woman in such a mental state to walk free? The case became a classic example of folie à deux, a rare psychological disorder where one person's delusions infect someone close to them. But no psychological analysis can undo the loss of Gwen Hollinsed's innocent life.
Level 2. Crime in the shadow of fire.
Georgetown, Ontario, on February 17, 2021, in the quiet town of Georgetown. A house was consumed by flames. After the fire was extinguished, the bodies of the homeowners Christina and Andre Rack were found among the ruins. At first, it seemed like a tragic fire accident, but autopsy results revealed a horrifying truth. The couple had before the fire. The police launched an investigation and uncovered a crucial clue by reviewing neighbors' CCTVs. A video showed that the night before the incident, an individual had hidden in the garage, waiting for Christina to arrive. As Christina drove into the garage, the person attacked her. This individual, Harrison Brown, a former employee of Christina's, had planned and executed this horrific crime out of a grudge against her. Brown, who had known Christina through a work relationship, killed her and her husband, then set the house ablaze to destroy evidence of his crime. But the detective's sharp work and evidence from the CCTV footage identified Brown as the prime suspect. He was arrested and charged with 2 counts of first-degree and arson. Ultimately, Harrison Brown confessed to Christina's and Andre's as second-degree and was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of parole for 25 years. This horrific crime plunged the small, peaceful Georgetown community into shock, showing how resentment and hatred can lead to such a devastating tragedy. The Halton Regional Police thanked the public and neighbors for providing evidence that played a significant role in solving the case, expressing hope that the verdict would bring some solace to the victim's family and the community.
The journey that never reached its destination.
February 2017, Jiaohua Park, Chongqing, China. Amusement parks are typically places of joy, laughter, and excitement. But sometimes that excitement turns into tragedy in the worst possible way. This is exactly what happened to a 13-year-old girl named Gan Tian at Jiaohua Park in China. That day, Gan Tian went with her family to the park for fun. One of the park's thrilling rides was a device called Space Journey, a giant pendulum that swung riders through the air, pumping adrenaline through their veins. Gan Tian eagerly boarded the ride, fastening her seatbelt and securing the overhead safety bar, unaware that these restraints would fail to save her life. The ride began to move, climbing higher and higher. At its peak, when the device was fully inverted, something horrific happened. Gan Tian slipped from her seat. For a few heart-stopping seconds, she hung from the ride by one leg, struggling between earth and sky. The crowd below watched in terror, screaming, but no one could do anything. Ultimately, Gan Tian plummeted from the great height to the ground below. Paramedics rushed to the scene and tried to revive her, but her injuries were so severe that Gan Tian in the hospital. Subsequent investigations revealed that both the seatbelt and the overhead safety bar had technical flaws, failing to secure her properly. The harrowing video of the incident, recorded by a bystander, spread rapidly worldwide, sparking waves of anger and grief. This tragedy led to the permanent closure of Jiaohua Park and a nationwide inspection of similar amusement rides in China. It was yet another reminder of how critical safety is in amusement parks and how it cannot be taken lightly. A joyful family day, with one small oversight, turned into a public mourning, robbing a teenage girl from her family forever.
Level 3. 3 minutes underwater.
May 18, 2022, Lawrence, Kansas. It was one of those calm, ordinary spring afternoons with the scent of fresh grass lingering in the air and children playing in the apartment complex courtyard. Xavier Ricci, a sweet 4-year-old boy with light hair and curious eyes, was one of those kids. Xavier had autism and lived in his own world, a world that sometimes led him to wander unaware of danger. The pool, with its tempting blue water, wasn't open for the warm season yet, surrounded by a tall fence and a locked gate. At least that's what everyone thought. No one knew that this calm was just moments away from turning into a nightmare. The initial trigger was a moment of inattention, the kind that can happen to any parent. Xavier's mother took her eyes off him for just a few seconds. But when she looked back, Xavier was gone. Her heart sank. At that moment, Maddox Westerhouse, a 12-year-old, was looking out his apartment window when he spotted something at the bottom of the pool. At first, he thought it was a toy or a bag, but then he recognized the shape of a small body. This was the turning point. The moment a crisis became a race against death. Maddox didn't make a wrong decision. On the contrary, he made the decision of a hero. With all his might, he shouted, "There's a kid at the bottom of the pool." Tom, Maddox's father, ran to the pool and without a moment's hesitation leapt over the tall fence. The splash of cold water shattered the afternoon's silence. When Tom pulled Xavier's lifeless body from the bottom, the boy looked like a rag doll, limp and motionless. He laid him beside the pool. Xavier's face was blue, and he wasn't breathing. Tom, who had taken first aid courses, began CPR. The sound of his own ragged breaths mixed with the pressure he applied to Xavier's frail chest. 1, 2, 3, 4. Time stretched, each second feeling like an hour. The chlorine taste of the pool water mixed with the bitter tang of fear in his mouth. Under his breath, he repeated one thing: "Come back, boy. Come back." After 3 minutes and 22 seconds of hell underwater, just as hope was fading, Xavier suddenly coughed violently, water spurting from his mouth. The sound of approaching ambulances was now the sound of salvation, not danger. The post-crisis scene wasn't a battlefield, it was the scene of a miracle. Xavier's father, who arrived after hearing the news, embraced Tom, both men trembling with emotion. Casualties? 0. Injuries? None. Just a 12-year-old hero whose sharp eyes changed fate, and a father who was willing to leap over the wall of death to save a child's life. The families were forever bound. Sometimes the greatest tragedies are averted because guardian angels live right next door, turning an ordinary day into an eternal memory of courage.
Level 4. The last live stream.
Quhao, China. In the summer of 2021, Xiao Qumei, a 23-year-old Chinese woman who worked as a crane operator and was a popular influencer on social media, had over 100,000 followers on the app Douyin, the Chinese version of TikTok, regularly sharing videos of her daily life. On the day of the incident, Xiao Qumei was recording another live stream from inside her crane cabin. She was seen in the video talking to her followers. But suddenly, the camera feed became chaotic, displaying blurry images of a fall. According to reports, she slipped while descending the crane and fell from a height of 160 feet, about 50 meters. Eyewitnesses reported that she fell to the ground at 5:40 p.m., when most of her coworkers had left the worksite, with the phone still in her hand, and died instantly. Xiao Qumei's family confirmed her death, attributing it to a misstep while descending the crane. They emphasized that she was a professional operator and never filmed during work hours, and that the incident occurred after her shift ended. Xiao Qumei, a mother of 2, inspired many of her followers with videos showcasing a young, vibrant woman thriving in a predominantly male profession. Her tragic death sparked widespread discussions about the potential dangers of creating content in high-risk environments and the psychological pressure on influencers to attract more followers. This tragedy was a bitter reminder that a moment's inattention at great heights can cost a life, and that the allure of the virtual world, no matter how captivating, must not overshadow the dangers of the real world.
The fall from the window of indifference.
Kuwait City, Kuwait, March 30, 2017. On March 30, 2017, a shocking video surfaced on social media that outraged the global conscience. In the video, a woman named Ada Sadiq, an Ethiopian domestic worker, was hanging from a 7th-floor window of a building in Kuwait, desperately screaming, "Hold me!" But her employer, instead of helping, coldly filmed the harrowing scene, even mocking her, saying, "Crazy, come back." Addis, no longer able to hold on, fell from the heights. Miraculously, her fall onto a metal awning saved her life. She was rushed to the hospital with severe injuries, including a broken arm and from her ears and nose. After partial recovery, Ada stated in an interview that she had not intended to take her own life, but was trying to escape her employer, who had locked her in the house and threatened to kill her. The video spread rapidly worldwide, igniting outrage and disgust at the employer's inhumane behavior and the dire conditions faced by domestic workers in some Persian Gulf countries. Human rights organizations demanded investigations and legal action against the employer. Ultimately, Kuwaiti police arrested Addis's employer for failing to assist a person in danger. Under Kuwaiti law, anyone who refuses to help someone in peril can face imprisonment. This incident once again drew global attention to the kafala system and the vulnerable status of migrant workers in the region. Many of these workers who migrate from African and Asian countries in search of work face abuse, exploitation, and violations of their basic human rights. Addis Sadiq's story, though it had a miraculous ending, sounded a serious alarm for the global community, highlighting the urgent need for legal reforms and greater oversight of these workers' conditions.
Level 5. The Onagawa Tsunami Hero.
Onagawa, Japan. On March 11, 2011, a 9.0 magnitude earthquake rocked Japan's coast, triggering one of the most devastating tsunamis in history. In the small coastal town of Onagawa, as warning sirens blared and people fled to higher ground, Mitsuo Sato, a manager at a seafood processing company, made a courageous decision. He took responsibility for the lives of 20 Chinese female trainees working at his company, leading them to a temple atop a hill. One of the trainees, Zhang Junyan, recorded these moments with her camera. The terrifying waves of the tsunami engulfing the town at an unimaginable speed. After ensuring the safety of his workers, Sato made a decision that cost him his life. He returned to the town to save his wife and daughter, who were at their home in the tsunami's path. Tragically, the massive waves gave him no chance, and he vanished in the raging waters. Sato's selfless act not only saved 20 lives, but became a symbol of courage and humanity amid the disaster. His story quickly spread through the media, and even Wen Jiabao, China's then premier, honored him as a hero during a visit to the earthquake-stricken areas, expressing gratitude for his sacrifice. Fortunately, it was later discovered that Sato's wife and daughters survived the tsunami and were found alive. The town of Onagawa was almost completely destroyed in the tsunami, with half of its 10,000 residents either killed or missing. Yet, amid all this devastation, Mitsuo Sato's heroic story remains a bright spot, reminding everyone that even in the darkest moments, humanity and sacrifice can shine through. His memory lives on in the hearts of those he saved, and in Japan's history forever.
Level 6. The Dream That Vanished.
Chester-le-Street, England. On a summer afternoon on June 23, 2006, a giant inflatable art installation called Dream Space in Riverside Park, Chester-le-Street, in northeast England. Designed by artist Maurice Agus, this vibrant plastic maze allowed people to walk inside and enjoy a play of light and color. But that day, a sudden strong gust of wind tore the structure from its moorings, lifting it into the air. At the moment of the incident, about 30 people, including several children, were trapped inside the inflatable structure. Dream Space, now out of control, spun through the air and crashed violently into the ground and a CCTV pole. In this horrific incident, 2 women, Elizabeth Collings, 68, and Claire Firmedge, 38, lost their lives after being thrown from the structure, and 13 others were injured. Subsequent investigations revealed that the art installation was secured with inadequate ropes and an insufficient number of pegs, with no proper risk assessment conducted for adverse weather conditions. Maurice Agus, the creator, was tried for manslaughter, but the jury could not reach a verdict. However, he was fined for breaching health and safety regulations. The Chester-le-Street Council and the event organizers were also found liable and ordered to pay compensation to the victims. The tragedy, captured by CCTV cameras, drew significant media attention and sparked serious discussions about safety standards for public events and temporary structures. Dream Space, meant to be a space for dreaming and enjoyment, became a nightmare that claimed the lives of 2 innocent people and left a bitter memory in the town's history forever. This incident proved once again that in any project, especially those involving human lives, safety must always be the top priority. Maurice Agus, the artist behind the work, passed away 3 years after the tragedy.
Level 7. Bloody Christmas.
December 22, 1090, Oakley, Utah, USA. This may be the most terrifying and shocking story you've ever heard. The Tide family had gone to their remote, snow-covered vacation cabin in Utah for the Christmas holidays to celebrate together. Unaware that two dangerous strangers had sinister plans for them. Von Taylor and Edward Deli, two career criminals recently released from prison, broke into the Tied family's cabin. When they entered, they saw Christmas gifts arranged under the tree.
I don't know. Okay. I don't think I got all of this.
In a horrific and bizarre act, Edward Deli picked up the family's camcorder and began filming Von Taylor.
I don't know. How am I supposed to find out?
Who, with gleeful cruelty, opened the family's Christmas presents and mocked them.
What is it? Baseball card.
This footage became a chilling testament to the pair's utter ruthlessness. Shortly after, Kay Teed, the mother, along with her mother Beth Potts and one of her daughters arrived at the cabin. Taylor and Deli attacked them with both women. Later, Ralph Tide, the father, arrived with another daughter. They too fell into the criminal's trap. Ralph was shot in the head, and, believing him dead, Taylor and Deli set the cabin ablaze, taking the two daughters, Lene and Tricia, as hostages. But Ralph miraculously survived. In his critical condition, he made it to a car and pursued the criminals. After a long chase, police intervened, arresting Taylor and Deli and rescuing the girls. In court, Von Taylor was sentenced to death, and Edward Deli received life imprisonment. Ralph Tied's testimony, as a survivor of the attack, played a crucial role in their conviction. The video Deli recorded of opening the gifts was presented in court as one of the most shocking pieces of criminal evidence in history. This story is of an innocent family whose Christmas celebration was turned into a living hell by two human monsters.
When the sea swallowed the world.
December 26, 2004, 7:58 a.m. local time, off the western coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. It was one of those Christmas mornings that felt like paradise for thousands of Western tourists, and just another day for millions of locals. The sun had just risen, and the turquoise waters of the Indian Ocean gently lapped at the sandy shores of Thailand, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and India. Children ran on the beaches, fishermen prepared their nets, and young couples strolled hand in hand. But beneath this deceptive calm, 30 kilometers below the ocean's surface, the Earth's crust was preparing for a deadly wail, one that would silence laughter forever. The initial trigger wasn't a tremor, it was a roar. The Earth shook for nearly 10 minutes, the longest duration ever recorded. A 9.1 magnitude earthquake tore apart a massive fault between two tectonic plates, releasing energy equivalent to 23,000 atomic bombs. This quake displaced the ocean floor, setting an unimaginable mass of water into motion. But on the surface, something strange happened. The sea suddenly retreated at an alarming speed, as if the ocean was taking a deep breath. Hundreds of meters of shoreline were exposed, fish gasping on wet sand. This was the turning point of the catastrophe. Curiosity overpowered fear. Locals and tourists, unaware of the monster approaching, ran excitedly to the shore to witness the rare phenomenon and collect shells. There was no tsunami warning system in the Indian Ocean to tell them that this deep breath was the prelude to a devastating scream. The first wave appeared on the horizon like a tall, black wall. At first, it was a thin line, but it quickly grew taller and larger. The curious silence on the shore gave way to a murmur of fear, then screams of terror. It was too late to escape. The wave's roar was like a freight train not passing by, but crushing you. With heights up to 30 meters, the waves slammed into the coast with unstoppable force. The sound of palm trees snapping was like matchsticks breaking. People's screams were lost in the deafening roar of water. water swept away everything. Wooden huts, concrete hotels, cars, and most importantly, people. The sensation of choking, the salty, gritty taste of water mixed with mud and gasoline, and the heavy blows of debris hitting bodies were the last things many felt. The paradisiacal shores turned, in minutes, into a churning cauldron of black water, wreckage, and death. When the water finally receded, the face of the earth had changed forever. The scene was like a vast, open graveyard. Where beautiful hotels and colorful homes once stood, only muddy ruins and uprooted trees remained. The final toll was staggering and unbelievable. Nearly 230,000 people were killed or missing across 14 countries, with millions left homeless. The world's response was immense, but for those buried under debris or in the ocean's depths, it was far too late. Families were torn apart. Some searched for loved ones through photos and lists for years. The ocean, once a source of life and tranquility, showed it could become the cruelest executioner in a single moment. The earth heals its wounds slowly, but the absence of those 230,000 souls remains an eternal scar on humanity's memory.